In the shambolic and subversive late 1970s, mature film was experimenting hard. The lines between genre content, grindhouse, and B-movie cinema were blurring in increasingly bizarre and brilliant ways. Dracula S, released in 1978 at the peak of the Golden Age, is one of the most audacious crossovers to come out of that era. It's a mature film with a legit Gothic atmosphere, a hammer horror aesthetic, and production values that outclass half the horror flicks being churned out by mainstream studios at the time. But the story behind the movie is as wild and unruly as the film itself. From high desert castles to gospel spiritual sing-alongs, from industry royalty clashing on set to career boosts into Hollywood, this is the behind-the-scenes saga of how a parody of Dracula turned into one of the most eccentric cult horror films of its time. Let's start with the logistics. Dracula S was primarily shot at Castle Ranch, a remote estate in Lancaster, California. If the Gothic structure looks familiar, it's because it was previously featured in Al Adamson's cult horror classic, Blood of Dracula's Castle. Set amid the eerie stillness of the high desert, Castle Ranch gave the production an atmospheric authenticity rarely seen in genre films. Additional scenes were reportedly shot in Death Valley National Park and other parts of California's vast, strange desertscape. The original vision was even grander. Director Philip Marshak, who started out in Hollywood as Jerry Lewis's assistant and who would go on to direct the equally oddball cult flick Night Train to Terror in 1985, had ambitious plans to shoot scenes aboard the Queen Mary ocean liner. That never happened, but the film still delivered a cavernous, surreal setting, complete with psychiatric asylums, Gothic bedrooms, and crypts that looked like they were borrowed from the Universal Studios backlot. At its core, DS is a mashup of Bram Stoker's classic and industry-appropriate content that we know and love. Dracula, played with impressive menace by Jamie Gillis, makes an impact at a sanitarium run by Dr. Arthur Seward, played by John Leslie. Lucy, played by the highly on-form Serena, and Mina, played by the beautiful Annette Haven, quickly fall under his spell. Van Helsing, played by veteran character actor Reggie Nalder, inexplicably credited as Detlef Van Berg, suspects vampiric foul play and gears up for a showdown. There's also Kay Parker as Dr. Sybil Seward, a rather unhinged John Holmes playing a character named Dr. John Stoker, and Seka in her feature film screen debut as Nurse Betty. Rounding off the who's who of the Golden Age, we have Paul Thomas as Jonathan Harker. If the plot and character relationships seem disjointed, that's because they were. The film was cobbled together through multiple edits, reshoots, and alternate cuts, some more adventurous, some more coherent. The more approachable cut, released as Lust at First Bite, downplayed the gore and genre content in favor of a slightly straighter narrative and a different ending. There was also a British theatrical and video release with even more cuts. But let's be real, people weren't turning up because of the plot. As mentioned, the release marked the screen debut of Seka, who'd go on to become one of the most iconic stars of the 1980s. In the role of Nurse Betty, she displays an early indication of the icy blonde, commanding screen presence she would perfect throughout her career. She was paid $300 a day, modest even for the time, but the exposure put her on the map and launched her into the big leagues. Behind the scenes, however, things weren't always smooth. John Leslie reportedly resented the fact that he didn't have the opportunity to act with Seka one-on-one. During the shoot, he even tried to write a scene into the movie that would provide this outcome. Seka, although very much an acting novice, remained steadfast in terms of what she was contractually obligated to do. According to Seka in a later interview, this led to a palpable tension between them on set. This mutual animosity and clash of egos would last several years into their working relationship. For an industry film, Dracula S goes surprisingly all in on style. The wardrobe, flowing gowns, waistcoats, and starched collars are period accurate enough to make you do a double take. Characters are dressed for mood, motif, and Gothic horror aesthetics. Inmates at the asylum wear everything from Little Bo Peep costumes to cowboy outfits, a surreal touch that borders on art house. Makeup was less refined but effective in terms of filmic intent, with waxy vampire fangs and pale complexions put together with hammer horror flair. It's part schlock, part serious homage, and it works fantastically. One of the film's more surreal moments comes when Annette Haven, Paul Thomas, and David Lee Bynum break into a solemn, harmony-laden rendition of Swing Low, Sweet Chariot. The spiritual hymn is juxtaposed against an outdoor scene with Serena and Mike Ranger. It's either an absurd joke, a meta-commentary, or both. Why was it in the film? No one knows for sure. But it's precisely that kind of irreverent, jarring turn that cements the film as something more than your average Golden Age feature. Interestingly, some behind-the-scenes players used Dracula S as a launching pad to mainstream gigs. Hananiah Bayer, the film's cinematographer, went on to shoot cult classics like Breakin' 2, Electric Boogaloo, Masters of the Universe, and Elvira, Mistress of the Dark. Nettie Pena, the editor, later directed the cult slasher Home Sweet Home in 1981. Thanks to boutique restoration label Vinegar Syndrome, Dracula S is now available in multiple formats, including a 4K UHD edition that likely looks sharper than it ever did in 1978. The Blu-ray includes featurettes like Return to Castle Ranch, where producer Daryl Marshak and co-writer William Margold revisit the dusty, decaying castle where the production took place. Today, the film occupies a weird, wonderful space in cinema history. It's not quite horror, not quite parody, and not your average genre film. Essentially, it is a wonderful, hypnotic cocktail of all three. In an era where genre blending is the norm and mature content is digital and disposable, Dracula S feels like a time capsule from a wilder, weirder age. It's a film where vampire fangs are well used and the stars sang hymns, and where the line between exploitation and art was deliciously blurred. Another glorious movie to come out of the Golden Age that deserves to be celebrated to this day. Okay, everyone, many thanks for watching. As always, I'll be back for another review of a Golden Age gem very soon.